There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't need to prove itself to the world. It doesn't show up in perfect circumstances or in moments of praise. It shows up when the weight is unbearable, when the silence feels deafening, when the answers won't come. This strength lives in the hearts of those who keep going, those who don't quit, those who do not complain when it gets hard, those who refuse to settle for less than what their highest self demands. This is the soul of Stoicism. The Stoics never promised ease. They never sold fantasies of comfort or convenience. What they offered instead was a way of being that would weather any storm, a code of living that made you unshakable, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. In a world that constantly invites us to give up, to wallow, to shrink, this philosophy whispers, stand tall. This video is not just a lecture. It is a call to arms, a challenge to live better, stronger, and more intentionally. We will explore what it means to never quit, to never complain, and to never settle through the eyes and wisdom of the Stoics. These are not just ideas. They are habits, forged in fire. And if you let them, they will change your life. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The fire that burns within. What does it mean to never quit? To the Stoics, quitting is not merely stopping a task. It is abandoning your duty to the best version of yourself. It is a betrayal of your reason, your will, and your character. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." The moment we quit on our own discipline, we hand over our freedom. Not just metaphorically, we surrender the very structure of our inner life. Life will confront you with fatigue, failure, and frustration. These trials are not signals to retreat, they are signals to grow. They are the raw material through which you forge your strength. They are the whetstone on which your resilience is sharpened. Every hardship, to the Stoic, is not a punishment, but a form of training. The cold, the rejection, the repetition, it is all the curriculum of greatness. Each time you push through exhaustion, navigate rejection, or press on in uncertainty, you don't merely endure, you evolve. You learn to see struggle not as a detour, but as the path itself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't philosophical poetry, it's tactical wisdom earned in the crucible of real life. Never quitting does not mean blind perseverance. It does not mean foolishly smashing your head against the wall or denying reality. It means choosing the path of persistence with clarity and intent. It means pausing when necessary, adjusting your stance, and returning every single day to your purpose, your principles, and your path. Even when your energy is drained, your motivation lost, your hope diminished, the Stoic still rises. Not because they are unshaken, but because they are grounded in something deeper than emotion, their commitment. That commitment becomes your compass, guiding you through storms. To endure is to resist the collapse of your character in the face of adversity. It is to stay aligned with your values, even when the world tempts you to bend. To endure is to trust that the repetition of right action, even in obscurity, is building something remarkable within you. We must learn to keep showing up, not because we expect instant results, but because we know the process itself refines us. There will be pain, yes. There will be doubt, of course. There may even be despair. But your spirit must be stronger than your mood, and your purpose louder than your fear. This is what makes you unbreakable. You build yourself in the moments when walking away seems easier. It is not in the victory that character is born, but in the struggle just before you decide to keep going. You develop muscle, spiritual, emotional, mental, by leaning into the resistance, not avoiding it. Every time you endure what your former self would have abandoned, you carve a new edge into your character. You train yourself to see pain not as something to escape, but something to examine. You cultivate grit by staying present in discomfort, understanding that this discomfort is not your enemy, but your invitation to grow. You gain clarity by walking through chaos, because clarity does not descend from the skies. It is earned through persistence in confusion. And that quiet decision to keep going, not once but every day through tedium, doubt, pressure and fatigue, is what will separate you from the majority who surrender when it gets inconvenient. That's where the Stoic shines, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where no applause is given. The Stoics did not glorify struggle for struggle's sake, but they honored perseverance as the crucible where meaning is forged. They knew the one who endures gains not just achievement, but wisdom. That wisdom is not found in theories or books. It is found in action, in doing the work no one sees, in choosing the right thing when the easy thing seduces you. It is found in the silence of steady work. So ask yourself, if you do not quit today, what might you become tomorrow? What higher level of resilience, of presence, of peace might await you just on the other side of this hardship? What new strength, what new clarity, what new self might emerge from the pain you resisted giving into? What dormant potential waits behind one more day of effort? What is possible when you decide that nothing, not failure, not fatigue, not fear, will force you off your path? What would life look like if you truly embraced the principle, I will not quit, not today, not ever? That choice, repeated again and again, will shape not only your outcomes, but your identity. It will sculpt your soul into something that even adversity must respect. Write down the one thing you're most likely to quit when it gets hard. Then write out the reasons why it matters to you. When the moment of quitting comes, and it will, return to that list. Remind yourself of your why. Choose to stay in the fight. Chapter 2. Discipline is destiny. Seneca reminds us, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Those words are not just a reminder, they are a warning. Quitting often begins long before we notice it. It begins subtly, in quiet moments of compromise. It starts in small acts of self-betrayal, skipping the gym, ignoring your journal, letting your anger dictate your actions instead of reason. It creeps in when we lower the bar for ourselves and call it rest, when we let comfort become a cage. The Stoics were vigilant about these small lapses because they knew a single day's weakness repeated can become a lifetime of resignation. The Stoics believed that life is a matter of training. They compared the soul to a muscle and the mind to a blade. Both must be forged, sharpened, and maintained through repetition and resistance. Nothing of lasting value is built without strain. Just as an athlete prepares for competition through hours of unseen labor, we must train daily to endure the mental, emotional, and spiritual battles ahead. That training is not glamorous. It's in the cold mornings when your bed tempts you to stay. It's in the uncelebrated routines where no applause waits. It's in the decision to do what's necessary over what's convenient. Discipline is not punishment. It is preparation. It is the structure upon which strength is built. It is the means through which we claim ownership of our time, our choices, and our character. Without it, life drifts. With it, life sharpens. To never quit, you must first become the kind of person who doesn't quit. That transformation is not a single moment of inspiration, but the result of repeated commitment. It's a lifestyle, a posture toward life, a decision renewed every day in the face of resistance. It requires more than motivation, which fades as quickly as it comes and cannot be relied upon when the day turns dark. It demands structure that holds you up when enthusiasm disappears, when the morning is heavy and the reasons feel far away. It demands intention that keeps you pointed toward what matters, even when distractions pull at your mind, and fear's whisper lies into your ear. And it demands inner alignment between who you are and who you are becoming, a congruence of thought, word, and deed. It means mastering your mind, which is often the most unruly force we face, constantly shifting with moods and stories. It means getting up early even when you don't feel like it, not because it's trendy, but because it reclaims your time from chaos. It means saying no to distractions, even when they offer momentary pleasure, because they cost you your presence, your purpose. It means returning to your values again and again, especially when the noise of life tempts you to abandon them, especially when excuses sound noble and quitting wears the mask of self-care. Each disciplined act is a vote for your future self. Each refusal to betray your standards is a nod to your higher self. Each moment of self-restraint is an act of self-respect. Every time you choose structure over impulse, you are casting a ballot for the person you intend to become, and that person becomes more real with every choice. And eventually, that person emerges, not by chance but by design, sculpted by thousands of choices no one else sees. And when you feel the pull to stop, when your willpower begins to fade and the excuses begin to sound reasonable, remember this: you are not alone. You are walking a path that countless others have walked before you, some in silence, some in hardship, some in the face of great suffering, all learning the same eternal lesson. Endurance is earned. Every Stoic before you, kings, slaves, philosophers, generals, has faced the same resistance. Their circumstances may have varied wildly, but their battles were human, just like yours. They weren't superheroes. They weren't immune to fear or doubt. They were simply committed. They chose to endure when the easier choice was to fold. They chose to rise when everything inside them begged for comfort. Let their example become your encouragement. Let their legacy remind you that strength is not born, it is built. Built in quiet hours when no one is clapping. Built in unseen choices made with no recognition. Built through the repeated decision to persist, no matter how small the step forward may be. Because every small step adds up. Every quiet moment of resilience becomes part of a foundation that can hold up the weight of a meaningful life. And that foundation becomes unshakable, not because it never saw the storm, but because it stood through it. You will not be defined by how many times you felt like quitting. You will be defined by how often you chose not to. Commit to one disciplined action this week that you've been avoiding. Track it daily. Hold yourself accountable as if your life depended on it, because in many ways, it does. Chapter 3. Obstacles are the test. The Stoics never saw adversity as misfortune. They saw it as opportunity, raw, unshaped, and often uncomfortable. They believed that difficulty was not only inevitable but essential. It's not the easy path that reveals our character, it's the hard one. The obstacle, as Marcus Aurelius taught, is not in the way. It is the way. What you run from is often the very thing meant to forge you into someone greater. And this was not a metaphor for them, it was a lived experience. They believed you don't grow in spite of obstacles, but because of them. Every time life tests you, you are presented with a choice. Will you rise or will you retreat? Will you interpret hardship as a sign to stop or as a summons to rise? The Stoics would tell you, rise, because that moment is your teacher. The rejection, the injury, the failure, all of it is refining you into something greater. You do not know who you are until you're tested, and it is only through resistance that the strength within you is revealed. Each trial contains within it the possibility of transformation, if only you'll stay long enough to listen, to learn, and to grow. When you quit, you rob yourself of the very thing that could transform you. You abandon your growth just before it had the chance to break through. You surrender your potential in favor of temporary relief. But when you stay, when you lean into the pressure, into the discomfort, into the resistance, you unlock new strength. You discover a depth of resilience that would remain hidden if you had walked away. That strength is not given to you. It is summoned from within by your refusal to be broken. The Stoic does not resist pain because they enjoy it. They endure it because they see beyond it. They are working towards something more permanent, the maturity of the soul. The man who never quits is not fearless. He feels the fear. He feels the doubt. But he does not obey them. He doesn't let them dictate the course of his life. He simply recognizes that courage only exists in the presence of fear. Without fear, there is no bravery, only routine, only comfort disguised as discipline. To move forward despite the tremble in your hands or the ache in your chest, that is the definition of courage. To keep standing when your legs shake, to speak truth when your voice wavers, to act when every part of you wants to hide. That is where real strength is born. He does not mistake the absence of emotion for strength, nor does he wait for fear to vanish before he acts. He acts through it, with it, beside it. The fear walks with him, but it does not lead. He chooses to walk through it, to engage with it, to stare it in the face and say, "You may stay, but you won't stop me." To rise not in the absence of adversity, but in the presence of it. That is the essence of Stoic resolve. It is the quiet defiance that whispers, "Not today. I am still here." This is the Stoic warrior, not invincible, but unyielding, not untouched by pain, but shaped by it, matured by it, refined through it, not armored from hardship, but weathered and wise because of it. His strength does not come from pretending things are easy, but from showing up even when they aren't, not dependent on outcomes, but committed to the process. He lives not for victory alone, but for the discipline of showing up. His identity is not built on results, but on relentless presence. He is proof that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to surrender to it. Think of one obstacle in your life right now. Reframe it. Write out how this very challenge could become your advantage. How might it teach you, sharpen you, strengthen you? Then take one action that embraces it instead of resisting it. Chapter 4. The Role of Duty. The Stoics didn't just act for themselves. They acted from duty. Their choices were not centered around pleasure, applause, or convenience. Marcus Aurelius, who governed an empire under unimaginable pressure, reminded himself daily that his role was not to enjoy life, but to fulfill it. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. He understood that life was not owed to him, and that each day was not a burden but a calling. His sense of duty grounded him amidst chaos. While others sought ease, he sought to serve. While others waited for the perfect conditions, he moved forward with imperfect strength, powered by purpose. When we connect our efforts to something bigger than our own comfort, quitting becomes less tempting. We begin to see that our lives are not isolated units of existence. We are threads in a larger fabric, and our strength, or lack of it, affects the weave of everything around us. Our daily choices contribute to a larger story. Our ability to persist, to rise each day with intention, becomes more than self-preservation. It becomes service. Our actions ripple outward in ways we may never fully see. The words we speak, the discipline we practice, the courage we embody, they become echoes in someone else's life. There is someone, somewhere, watching us, consciously or not, to know what endurance looks like. Maybe it's a child learning what it means to be consistent and dependable in a chaotic world. Maybe it's a colleague quietly measuring whether to keep pushing or to walk away. Maybe it's a stranger on the edge of giving up who just needs one example of resilience to hold on to. Someone living proof that strength isn't mythical, it's practiced. Be their example. Be the reason they believe strength still exists in this world. Be the signal fire that reminds others not to surrender. Be the proof that principle can still triumph over convenience, that real power lies not in control, but in courage, not in domination, but in integrity. Duty means showing up even when it's inconvenient. It means stepping forward when you're tired, when the path is unclear, when your emotions beg for retreat. It means choosing principle over preference, choosing action over avoidance, and values over validation. It means doing the work even when no one is watching and no recognition waits at the end, not for praise, but because it's right. It means standing firm in your word, not because it impresses others, but because it aligns you with your highest self. It means making yourself accountable, not just to people, but to a standard that holds even when the spotlight fades. Duty means honoring your commitments even when they're no longer exciting, even when the passion has cooled and the rewards are not immediate. It means returning again and again to the promises you made to yourself and others, even when your emotions no longer support those promises. It means resisting the seductive pull of ease when every part of you is begging to disengage. It means acting from the place of principle, not preference, from your higher self, not your weaker moments. It means standing guard at the door of your values, refusing to let them erode with fatigue, frustration, or outside influence. Your values are your fortress. When you leave them unattended, you leave yourself unprotected. To uphold duty is to stand as a sentinel over your character. It's to carry a sense of mission into the mundane, to see importance even in repetition. It is saying yes to the hard thing again and again, not because it feels good, but because it makes you good. It means carrying your principles like a torch through the darkness, so that others may see the path, and so that you may never forget your way. That torch, however heavy, lights the way for generations. You may not always see the lives your example touches, but rest assured, the impact of living with integrity echoes. It's the father whose silence teaches his son to be steady, the friend whose loyalty makes others feel safe, the leader whose reliability sets the rhythm of trust. Duty is not glamour, it is grit. It is the long haul, the hidden labor, the steady hand. It is a responsibility and an honor. It is the invisible legacy we leave in the world, the quiet leadership of example, the moral architecture of daily life. It asks more of us than we think we can give, but in answering its call, we become more than we imagined. And perhaps the most noble kind of power we can wield is not control over others, but consistency within ourselves. When the noise of the world fades, when trends disappear and applause dies down, what will remain is the steady rhythm of a life lived with duty. In a world where many chase influence, those who embody duty will always carry the true weight of respect, the kind that is felt in silence and remembered long after words fade, the kind that makes a soul unforgettable. Define your duty. Who relies on your strength? What standard do you want to set in your family, your community, your craft? Anchor yourself to that vision every time you want to quit. Chapter 5. The Power of the Present Struggle. It's easy to quit when you live in the past or future, when your mind is haunted by what could have been or overwhelmed by what might come. You remove yourself from the only place you have any power, right now. The Stoics trained themselves with absolute urgency to stay grounded in the present moment. They knew that ruminating on the past creates guilt, and obsessing about the future generates anxiety. But the present, that is where your hands can shape, your breath can center, and your will can act. Right now is all you have, not tomorrow, not next week, this breath, this choice. Marcus Aurelius advised, confine yourself to the present. This isn't passive acceptance. It's active engagement. It's a radical form of courage to be fully present with your pain, your confusion, your doubt, and not run from it. The present moment holds all the tools you need to grow, but only if you're willing to look, feel, and act within it. The temptation to escape into the past or jump ahead to the future is seductive because it removes us from the discomfort of now. But the Stoics knew that presence is the battleground. It is where we meet our fears, where we tame our impulses, where we choose the next right action, not the easiest one. When you are fully present, you realize that most struggles are endurable. You notice that fear shrinks when examined, that uncertainty softens when met head-on. They lose their power when you face them directly. The mountain that looked so massive from a distance becomes just one step, and then another, and another. That's how real strength is built, through deliberate, grounded action. You don't need to conquer the entire mountain today. Just take one step, then take another tomorrow. Presence turns the impossible into the manageable, the overwhelming into the attainable. Quitting often feels like relief, but it is a mirage. It is the illusion of rest when what you really need is resolve. It is the soft lure of false safety, of stepping back not to gather strength, but to avoid the friction of transformation. It is the false comfort of escape when the very pain you're trying to flee is the gateway to your evolution. Pain is not your punishment, it's your path. It teaches, it sharpens, it reveals the gaps in your strength not to shame you, but to show you where to grow. Quitting is not an escape. It is a forfeiting of the very opportunity that suffering offers you. It is the comfort of turning away from growth, of choosing stillness, not because it's peaceful, but because it's safe, predictable, and void of discomfort. But the moment you turn away, you also turn away from the version of yourself you are capable of becoming, the stronger, wiser, clearer version of you who lives on the other side of difficulty. Growth doesn't hide in the future or dwell in the past. It rises from the soil of the now. It is born in action, watered by effort, and fed by persistence. The present moment, though difficult, is trying to hand you the tools for your transformation. Your trials are not without meaning. They are shaping you. Each test is a forge, and each struggle a sculptor. You are being refined. Stay, struggle with it, wrestle with your limits, breathe through the tension, sit with the discomfort, speak truth when it's hard, take the action that feels heavy, meet your edge and stay there. Push it a little further. This is where change begins, not in the retreat, not in the avoidance, but in the heart of the pressure. Because every great transformation is born in the fire of the present difficulty. That fire forges strength, burns away illusion, and reveals what you're really made of. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't care about your timeline. It simply offers the raw material of growth and asks if you're willing to engage with it. That fire tests you not to break you, but to refine you. It's the place where excuses are exposed, where clarity is carved out of chaos, and where resilience is earned, not given. The heat of the moment may feel unbearable, but it is the very thing that shapes the steel of your character. It demands something from you, not perfection, but presence, not grand gestures, but quiet consistency. That fire asks for your patience, your attention, your humility. It asks you to lean in instead of pull away, to listen more closely to your own soul, to bring your full self, even when you feel fractured or fatigued, to stop waiting for the perfect plan or the perfect feeling, and to instead trust that showing up fully is more powerful than showing up flawlessly. It doesn't need flawless execution. It needs your full participation. It doesn't care how messy your effort looks. It only asks that your effort be sincere and your heart engaged. It needs your willingness to stay with what's hard instead of fleeing to what's easy. It needs your discipline when motivation leaves, your breath when panic rises, your grounding when everything feels unstable. It's in those moments, when everything inside you says quit, that your greatest breakthrough often sits. quietly waiting behind your refusal to give up. You can only become who you are meant to be by staying rooted here, doing the hard thing now, not later, not when you feel better, not when life gets easier, not when the world calms down or you feel ready. Readiness rarely arrives before action. It is summoned by it. Now, that word is where life lives, because readiness is often born from movement, not before it. Momentum generates clarity, action builds confidence, repetition strengthens resolve, and every future you dream of, every goal, every breakthrough, every victory, depends on the step you take today, not someday, not when conditions are perfect, but now, always now, because the present moment is not only where your life happens, it is where your transformation is waiting. The fire of now doesn't just test who you are, it forges who you're becoming. Practice presence under pressure. When you feel the urge to give up, pause, breathe, bring your awareness fully to the moment. Say to yourself, "This is where I build my strength." Then take the smallest next step forward. Chapter 6. The Burden of Bitterness. To complain is to resist reality without offering a solution. It is to relive pain without progress, to rehearse injury without healing. Complaining gives voice to frustration, but offers no path forward. The Stoics believed that complaint is the voice of an untrained mind, one that hasn't yet learned to separate what is within our control from what is not. To them, a complaint was not merely an expression of dissatisfaction, but a signal that the mind is focused outward instead of turning inward to build resilience. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." He meant that reaction is everything. The event is neutral. The response is where power or powerlessness is decided. Complaining anchors us to victimhood. It keeps us in a loop of powerlessness, convincing us that the external world must change for our peace to return. It persuades us that life owes us comfort and fairness, that until the world bends to our preference, we cannot be calm or content. It suggests that our emotional stability is dependent on everything outside of us behaving perfectly. This belief feeds weakness and numbs initiative. But the Stoics flipped the script. They taught that peace comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering our response to it. To complain is to experience the injury twice, once through reality and again through rumination. We experience the event and then we relive it endlessly in our mind, adding commentary, judgment, and resentment. The Stoic seeks to end this cycle, not by denying pain, but by engaging with it differently, by choosing interpretation over impulse, reflection over reaction. They treat hardship like a craftsman treats raw material, not with scorn, but with an eye for transformation. The mind that complains has not yet turned inward. It is still looking outward for justice, for fairness, for order. It's waiting for the world to deliver balance instead of building internal stability. But life is not fair, and nature owes us nothing. Expecting fairness from fate is like asking the sea not to be wet. Suffering is part of the human experience, not its exception. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That realization was his armor. He faced wars, plagues, betrayal, and loss, but he did not curse the sky. He turned inward to what he could control, his thoughts, his choices, his perspective. This was not passive surrender. It was powerful ownership. The complaint dies when responsibility is born, and responsibility begins when we stop narrating the pain and start using it. When we say, "This is mine to carry, so let me carry it well." Not with resentment, but with resolve. Not to be admired, but to be strong. To live without complaint is not to live without struggle. It is to choose strength over sorrow, posture over pity, action over noise. It is to understand that struggle is not a reason to retreat, but a reason to engage more deeply. The Stoic knows that the world will not always be kind, that fate will not always favor them, but they do not hand over their peace to circumstance. They do not depend on fairness to be good or ease to be strong. They understand that their character is forged not by what happens, but by how they meet it. They accept the moment and ask, "What can I do now?" This is not silence, it is action, not repression, but redirection. They take the sting of frustration and turn it into fuel. They take hardship and make it a forge. They stop expecting comfort and start creating character. In doing so, they become not only more resilient, but more useful to themselves, to their community, and to the world. They become the kind of person others can look to when life gets hard, not because they complain, but because they've chosen courage instead. Spend one day without a single complaint, not one word of frustration, not one sigh of disapproval. At the end of the day, reflect on what changed in your energy, your posture, your clarity. This is your glimpse into power reclaimed. Chapter 7. The Language of Strength. Words shape perception, and the words we choose, especially under pressure, reveal the architecture of our mindset. The Stoics were masters of restraint, not just in action, but in speech. Because to complain is not just to describe a situation, it is to judge it, to react to it, to invest emotion into a story that often deepens suffering. Words are not simply sound, they are symbols, signals, choices. The Stoics knew that language is never neutral. What we say, we reinforce. What we repeat, we begin to believe. What we believe, we begin to live. And what we live, we begin to become. When we say, "I can't take this," we shrink our capacity before it's truly tested. When we mutter, "This isn't fair," we position ourselves against life rather than beside it. These phrases may seem small, even harmless, but repeated often enough, they train the mind to recoil from adversity rather than confront it. They plant seeds of weakness, which grow into habits of helplessness. Complaining weakens the soul not only because it avoids responsibility, but because it reprograms the way we interpret reality. The problem is not only the pain, but the story we attach to the pain. Words can chain us to a problem or unlock our power to rise above it. Stoic strength is silent strength, not repressed, but refined. It does not shout to prove its presence. It speaks with intention, with purpose, with clarity. Seneca advised, "Speech in defense of philosophy should be simple and unpretentious." What he meant was that wisdom doesn't need drama, courage doesn't whine, purpose doesn't panic. A mind trained in Stoicism speaks less to be heard and more to be effective. It uses words to guide, not to grumble, to instruct, not to inflate, to reflect, not to rant. It speaks to build bridges of meaning, not to echo the noise of complaint. Complaining is loud and sloppy. It spills emotion without discipline. It seeks validation without offering resolution. But the Stoic approach is different. It filters language through principle. It slows the tongue to sharpen the thought. Before speaking, ask, "Is this useful? Is this true? Is this necessary?" If not, it may be better left unsaid. The warrior of the mind speaks with restraint, not because they fear expression, but because they respect it. They understand the weight of words, and they wield them with care. Their words build, clarify, elevate. Their silence, too, speaks volumes. And when they speak of pain, they speak with purpose, not to pity themselves, but to share strength. Their language is their leadership. Their words become a mirror of their inner discipline, a daily reflection of their training and their truth. Audit your language for one full day. Write down phrases you often say under stress. Are they empowering? Are they honest? Are they anchored in responsibility or blame? Replace complaints with questions. Instead of, why me? Ask, what can I learn? Instead of, this is too much, try, this is my training ground. Your tongue reveals your training. Let it show your strength. Chapter 8. Comparison is poison. One of the quietest forms of complaint is comparison. When we look at others and feel diminished, when we measure our lives against someone else's highlight reel, we're not only insulting our own path, we're giving our peace away. The Stoics warned against the danger of envy and jealousy, not because they were morally wrong, but because they are emotionally useless. Comparison steals the present moment and replaces it with resentment. Seneca put it plainly, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." And often we crave more not because we truly need it, but because someone else has it. Comparison trains the mind to see lack where there is abundance. It reprograms our gratitude into grievance. The Stoic path is not about being indifferent to progress, but about measuring your progress by your own standard, not by another's timeline. When you complain through comparison, you are essentially saying, my life is not good enough unless it looks like theirs. That is a dangerous surrender. It erodes agency and buries uniqueness. The Stoic sees this clearly. They remember that each person walks their own path with their own burdens and blessings. No life is truly as perfect as it appears, and no peace can be built on someone else's foundation. To free ourselves from the trap of comparison, we must redirect attention inward. Am I living according to my values? Am I doing what I can with what I have? Am I improving not just my circumstances, but my character? These are the only comparisons worth making. The rest are distractions that drain your discipline. Every time you catch yourself comparing, pause. Say aloud, that is not my path. Then return your focus to your next right step. Comparison is a thief, but focus is a forge. Chapter 9. The Discipline of Gratitude. Gratitude is not the denial of difficulty, it is the refusal to be defined by it. It is the conscious act of seeing light in the midst of shadows, of finding value even in the trenches of struggle. The Stoics practiced gratitude not in the absence of hardship, but in its presence. They saw thankfulness as a form of spiritual discipline, a way of refusing to let what is missing overshadow what is present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess." In other words, the power to reframe is always in your hands. When you choose to focus on what remains, you strengthen your capacity to carry what's difficult. We complain when we forget that this moment, however flawed, is a moment some people are praying for, that this breath, however anxious, is still a gift, that this body, however tired, is still capable, that simply waking up with a chance to try again is a privilege, not a burden, that to struggle is to be alive, that to feel is to still have a pulse. We forget that there are people fighting battles we don't see, carrying burdens heavier than ours, and still managing to find beauty in small things, like a warm cup of tea, a morning breeze, a single quiet moment of peace. Gratitude is clarity. It restores perspective when fear clouds the mind. It humbles ego and burns away the fog of entitlement. It pulls our attention away from what's lacking and centers it on what's lasting. It interrupts the spiral of self-pity. It sharpens the voice of wisdom. It says, look at what is still here, instead of, look at what you lost. It gently reminds you that enough exists in this moment if you are willing to see it. And when practiced consistently, gratitude builds resilience like a muscle, stronger with repetition, steadier under pressure. It is a kind of emotional armor, grown through trials, tested in uncertainty, matured by time. Gratitude is not a reaction, but a readiness. The more you practice it, the more it becomes your natural lens, your instinctual posture when life becomes heavy. Gratitude changes how we carry hardship. It allows us to hold pain with open hands, not clenched fists. It turns moments of irritation into moments of insight. It transforms routine into ritual. It gives meaning to effort. It doesn't numb us to pain, but it prevents pain from becoming bitterness. It doesn't make problems disappear, but it shifts our relationship to them, so they become part of the journey, not the reason to give up. Gratitude doesn't ignore pain. It meets it with grace. It acknowledges difficulty, but refuses to be imprisoned by it. It says, yes, this is hard, but I'm still here. And that means there is still something to be honored, something to be salvaged, something to be strengthened. It reframes survival as sacred. It says, there's still something to build, something to carry forward. In this way, gratitude becomes a quiet kind of courage. It is not loud or dramatic. It is grounded, steady, enduring. It is a silent rebellion against despair. It gives us access to joy without needing our circumstances to change. It allows us to carry our burdens with dignity, to face our hardships with perspective, to find power not in perfection, but in presence. Gratitude doesn't remove adversity, it reframes it. It turns tragedy into testimony. It gives meaning to the mundane and purpose to the pain. The Stoic does not wake up waiting to feel thankful. They create the feeling by directing attention. They take their mind by the hand and point it toward what is working, what is worthy, what is meaningful. They remind themselves that everything they have is temporary, and so nothing should be taken for granted. They focus on what is left, not what has been taken. They give thanks for opportunities to endure, to act, to rise. Because every day that allows us to practice our values is a day to be grateful. Even suffering becomes sacred when it refines us. Even setbacks become sacred when they reveal strength. Even the stillness between chapters in life is sacred when we see it through the eyes of gratitude. Complaint robs energy. Gratitude restores it. One drains your soul, the other fuels it. Gratitude is not an emotion. It is an orientation, a deliberate decision to see beyond what is missing and instead draw strength from what remains. And in a world that trains us to chase more, gratitude teaches us to honor what we already have. Right now, in this breath, in this moment. It is how the Stoic transforms scarcity into sufficiency, hardship into harmony, and survival into something noble. Begin or end each day by writing 3 things you are genuinely grateful for, not vague, hollow affirmations, but sincere recognitions. If your day was hard, find what refined you. If it was easy, find what centered you. Let gratitude be your discipline, not your mood. Chapter 10. Never settle. To never settle is to never stop striving for the best within you. Not the best measured by applause or results, but the best measured by principle. The Stoics believed that excellence, arete, was the highest goal. It meant virtue in action, character lived out, day after day, regardless of recognition. It wasn't a finish line, it was a way of being, a discipline of the soul. To settle is to abandon that pursuit. It is to exchange potential for comfort, integrity for approval, progress for familiarity. It is to give up the journey for the illusion of rest. And that illusion, seductive as it may seem, is the true enemy of greatness. It tempts you with ease while quietly draining your edge. Settling is the soft surrender we don't even notice until we've drifted far from who we intended to become. When we settle, we quietly agree to stop evolving. We lower the standard not because it's wise, but because it's easy. And ease, unchecked, becomes erosion. The Stoics warned of this. The soul, like a blade, dulls when unused. They didn't chase perfection, they chased consistency. Not grandeur, but goodness. Not comfort, but clarity. They knew that excellence is not a moment, but a habit forged in repetition and reflection. To never settle means holding yourself to a standard even when no one is watching. It means asking more of yourself, even when the world asks for less. It means doing the hard thing, not for glory, but for growth. It is a personal contract between who you are and who you could become, a commitment to the inner flame, even when the path is cold. Settling is not about circumstances, it is about mindset. You can live in humble means and still hold high standards. You can face failure and still refuse to dilute your discipline. You can be overlooked by the world and still remain faithful to your craft. The Stoic does not measure success by winning. They measure it by the purity of effort, the depth of intention, and the courage to continue. They ask themselves, did I give everything I could with honor? If the answer is yes, that is enough. That is victory, regardless of outcome. To the Stoic, every moment of effort is sacred, even if no one applauds it, even if no one sees it, because the soul sees, and the soul remembers. To never settle is to see your time as sacred, your energy as valuable, your potential as real. Every second is a deposit into the life you are creating, and to squander it is to betray the quiet fire within you that knows you were meant for more. It is to live as if your life matters, because it does, not just to others, but to you. You have a responsibility to yourself to become who you're capable of becoming. It is to reject mediocrity, not with arrogance, but with devotion to what is possible. Not because you are entitled to greatness, but because you are called to growth. You are not here to coast. You are not here to repeat. You are here to rise. And that rising must be chosen every single day, not once, but again and again, in the overlooked spaces of your life, in the invisible moments that seem ordinary but shape your character, in how you hold yourself during quiet hours, when no audience applauds and no feedback follows, in how you keep promises that no one else knows about, not because someone will find out, but because your word matters to you, in how you train your thoughts, gently but firmly redirecting them when they wander toward weakness, when they start crafting excuses instead of strategy, in how you show up when it's hard and when it's tempting to give only half, in how you resist cutting corners, in how you speak to yourself when you fall short, whether you extend grace or weaponize shame, in how you rebound after failure and choose to keep your standard high, to refuse to let disappointment become your default. To never settle means constantly calling yourself back to alignment again and again, especially when the world isn't watching. To never settle is to make excellence your practice and virtue your reward. It is to live with a kind of sacred commitment to your growth, a quiet, ongoing promise to show up fully, to do what's right even when it's invisible, and to hold yourself to the truth you know in your bones. It is not about being flawless. It is about being faithful to your growth. It is about striving not because you hate who you are, but because you love who you're becoming. It is to say, through action, that you will not abandon the work of becoming, not now, not ever. That you will not let the discomfort of growth convince you to compromise with comfort. That no matter how slow your progress feels, you will not trade your values for convenience. You will not shrink to fit comfort. You will not numb to escape pressure. You will not let the noise of the world drown out the clarity of your calling. You will lean in. You will endure. You will stand again and again. You will choose the path that demands more from you because you know it will bring out the best in you. You will take the long way not because it's easier, but because it's honest, because shortcuts shrink your spirit and discipline builds it. To never settle is to remember, in the moments that most tempt you to settle, that your soul was built for more, and that you are always, always in the process of becoming. You are the architect of your inner life, and excellence is not a destination, but a decision made every hour, every test, every step. Keep choosing, keep rising. Identify one area where you've been settling, whether in your habits, your standards, or your self-respect. Name it clearly, then define what excellence would look like in that area. Take one deliberate step today toward that standard. Never settle, not because you must be perfect, but because you were never meant to stay small. What if I told you that your biggest enemy is not out there? It's in here, inside your mind. Not your boss, not society, not your circumstances, just you. The version of you that doubts, procrastinates, and listens to fear instead of potential. This battle isn't fought with swords or fists, but with decisions, every single day. Every thought, every hesitation, every excuse. These are the real obstacles. The enemy is not some external force. It is the voice within that tries to hold you back. But here's the truth. Self-belief is not something you find. It is something you forge. It is a muscle, and like any muscle, it strengthens with resistance. Every time you push past self-doubt, every time you silence that inner critic, you get stronger. You become more than the sum of your fears. You become unstoppable. So what does it take to win this battle? It takes relentless action, an unshakable identity, and a mindset that refuses to break. It takes understanding that no one is coming to save you, because you don't need saving. You need belief. Belief in your ability, in your resilience, in your capacity to rise above every obstacle thrown your way. This is the story of self-belief, the story of you versus you. And today, you make the choice. Will you conquer the doubts within, or will they conquer you? Chapter 1. The Enemy Within. The Stoics said it plainly. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca's words echo a fundamental truth. The battle that rages inside of you is not against the world, but against your interpretation of the world. Your anxiety, your fears, your procrastination, they do not originate from external forces. They are the result of how you choose to see your challenges. Picture a blacksmith hammering a blade. The steel does not become strong without heat and pressure. You are the steel. Every moment of doubt is the fire. Every moment you want to give up is the hammer. You will either be forged by your struggles or shattered by them. The enemy within is cunning beyond measure. It does not announce itself loudly or charge at you in the open. Instead, it moves quietly, waiting for the precise moment when your guard is down. It appears in moments of comfort, whispering gently that you can rest when you haven't earned it, convincing you that a little more ease won't hurt. It creeps into your thoughts when discomfort strikes, urging you to stop, to surrender, because the path seems too hard and the burden too heavy. It knows exactly when you are weakest, not in moments of real threat, but in moments of inner negotiation. The Stoics understood this dynamic better than anyone. They taught that if you do not master your mind, it will master you, and that mastery is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. The enemy within is not a single voice, but a chorus of excuses, doubts and fears, all disguised as reason and concern. It thrives on your hesitation and grows stronger each time you allow it to guide your behavior. The lesson here is simple, yet profoundly difficult. You must be aware of the battle and willing to face it every single day. The greatest disadvantage is to fight an enemy you cannot see, and most people never even realize they're in a battle at all. They mistake their own inner voice for truth, never questioning whether the thoughts that hold them back are valid or merely conditioned responses to discomfort. You have to become your own observer, not passively, but with relentless curiosity and honesty. You must develop the discipline to pause in the middle of your busy, chaotic day and interrogate your thoughts as if you were cross-examining a witness. Why am I thinking this? What is the root of this hesitation? What am I trying to avoid? You must dissect your impulses and shine light into the darkest corners of your mind, the places where you justify delay, where you rationalize weakness, where you quietly give yourself permission to shrink when you should be expanding. Identify the voice in your head that doubts, delays, distracts, and deceives. It wears many masks. Some days it sounds like fatigue. Other days it sounds like reason or caution. Give it a name if you must. Resistance, fear, comfort, the inner critic, or even the whisperer that gently nudges you back into the shadows of comfort. The name itself is irrelevant. What matters is that you recognize it when it speaks. You need to develop an instinct, a trained awareness that allows you to catch that voice mid-sentence and question it fiercely. Understand that this is not about silencing that voice forever. That is impossible. It is a part of you. It is a reflection of your past fears, your learned helplessness, your conditioning. It will always return like a shadow trailing behind you. But every time you resist it, every time you consciously choose action over hesitation, every time you lean into discipline instead of comfort, you chip away at its power. You do not need to destroy it. You only need to stop listening. That is how you win the battle of you versus you, not in a grand, dramatic gesture, but in the daily, quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. One decision, one moment of self-awareness, one refusal to obey that inner voice of weakness. And over time, those small moments become the foundation of an unstoppable identity. Every time you hesitate, ask yourself, is this hesitation coming from the real world or from me? Begin a journal where you write down moments when you feel self-doubt. Dissect them. Where did they come from? What triggered them? This practice will help you see the enemy more clearly. Chapter 2. The Weight of Choice. Epictetus said, "You may not control the events, but you can control how you react to them." Here's the secret that often slips through the cracks of our noisy, distracted minds. Every single day, you are presented with a choice, and that choice is not neutral. It is the very battlefield of you versus you. Each morning, as you open your eyes, the battle quietly begins anew. Before you even set foot on the ground, the first skirmish takes place. Not in the outside world, but in the privacy of your own mind. This is where the war starts, in those first fragile moments when your thoughts are unguarded and vulnerable. You can choose to scroll aimlessly on your phone, to surrender your precious attention to meaningless noise and digital distractions, flooding your mind with the trivialities of other people's lives. Or you can choose to take control, to take that first step of the day with intention, to rise above the numbing habit of passivity and start building the life you want brick by brick, habit by habit, decision by decision. You can choose to numb yourself with shallow comforts, entertaining your boredom with cheap dopamine hits and instant gratification, or you can lean into the discomfort of growth, the difficult task of self-creation, knowing that every hard choice sharpens you. You can choose to give in to fear, to allow your mind to spiral in hesitation, to overthink every possible outcome until you're paralyzed, frozen in the endless loop of what-ifs and maybes. Or you can choose to act despite it, to take one small, brave step forward when everything inside you wants to freeze and hide, when your mind screams for retreat. Every choice, no matter how small, is part of the internal war that determines who you are and who you will become. Every micro-decision is a thread woven into the fabric of your character. Most people want a strong mind without lifting the weight of responsibility. They want confidence without conflict, power without pressure, growth without the growing pains. They wish to feel unstoppable without confronting the moments when they feel powerless, to harvest resilience without ever planting the seeds of hardship. But choice is not free. Choice is a burden. It is a weight you must carry every day, and the heavier the responsibility you take upon yourself, the stronger you will become under its pressure, if you have the courage to carry it. The paradox is simple yet brutal. The harder the choices, the easier the life. The easier the choices, the harder the life. The Stoics didn't waste their energy complaining about the hand they were dealt. They knew that life's randomness is indifferent to your desires, that fate does not bend to your preferences, that fortune does not cater to your feelings or your plans. Instead of weeping over the cards they were given, they focused all their energy on playing that hand better than anyone else possibly could. They recognized that control is not found in circumstance, but in response. They knew that the cards life hands you are irrelevant. It's how you play them, how you maneuver around their limits, that defines you. Every moment you choose discipline over distraction, focus over chaos, effort over ease, you win a small, almost invisible battle within yourself. These victories may seem trivial in the moment, so small that you barely notice them, but like drops of water cutting relentlessly through stone, they compound. Each drop is a choice. Each choice carves out your character. Each repetition of discipline etches a groove deeper into your identity. Over time, they create a current strong enough to reshape your identity entirely, to bend who you were into who you were meant to be. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," you are not merely postponing a task, you are actively casting a vote for the weaker, more fragile version of yourself. You are handing authority over to the inner voice that seeks safety in delay, that whispers excuses, that feeds your complacency and dulls your ambition. You are voting to remain small, to defer your own greatness. Every time you say, "I'll do it now," regardless of how you feel, regardless of the discomfort, you are casting a vote for the relentless, disciplined, and unstoppable version of yourself. You are reminding yourself that you are not a victim of your emotions, but the architect of your actions. You are reinforcing a system of integrity, building the kind of person who does not wait for ideal conditions, but creates them through willpower, consistency, and ruthless self-honesty. Every now you choose is a brick laid in the fortress of your future. Begin to see every small decision as a vote. When you wake up, when you eat, when you speak, ask yourself, who am I voting for right now, the weak me or the strong me? This mindset will train you to make better choices without needing motivation. Chapter 3. Discipline over motivation. The world is obsessed with motivation. It glorifies the fiery spark, the flash of inspiration, the adrenaline-fueled moments when everything feels possible. Social media is flooded with short, catchy quotes and videos that promise to ignite your willpower, as if a single phrase could transform your entire life. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work,' as a human being." This was not a call to wait for motivation, but a call to live by duty and reason, even when you feel nothing at all. Motivation is fleeting. It is a gust of wind that appears when the conditions are favorable, but disappears the moment the weather changes. It is a temporary spark, a flicker that rarely stays long enough to fuel lasting transformation. It depends on mood, energy, and external circumstances, things outside your control. Motivation is like a visitor who knocks on your door unpredictably, sometimes staying for only a few minutes before leaving you empty again. It is unreliable, inconsistent, and conditional. Discipline, however, is eternal. It is not dictated by the rise and fall of emotion, but by the unwavering commitment you make to yourself. It is a resident, not a visitor. It depends only on you. And that is why it is powerful. It is the difference between hoping you'll rise and deciding you will rise. The internal battle of you versus you is never won by feeling good. It is never won by hoping you will wake up one day brimming with enthusiasm, fully charged and ready to conquer the world. It is won by doing good, by choosing action over ease, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it, because that is where real strength is forged, in the absence of feeling, in the presence of resistance. Real power is developed in the moments when the inner voice tells you to rest, but you rise, when the mind urges you to quit, but you persist, when your body aches and your spirit is drained, but you take another step forward anyway. That is the secret the world does not tell you. The best version of you is not born in motivation, but in monotony, in discipline, in quiet, consistent effort, in the invisible labor that compounds when no one is watching. You will not always feel inspired. You will not always feel ready. You will wake up some days with dread in your chest, with fatigue in your bones, with doubt echoing in your mind like a heavy drumbeat. There will be mornings when the darkness in your thoughts outweighs the light, when your body aches and your mind wants to retreat, when everything within you pleads for you to stay small and comfortable. That is not a flaw. It is the reality of life. It is what being human feels like, and that is the point. Strength is built when you move forward regardless of how you feel, when you choose to act not because you want to, but because you said you would, when you show up despite exhaustion, when you execute despite doubt. That is where the transformation happens, not in grand gestures, but in small, defiant acts of self-respect. Every time you rise in defiance of your emotions, you reinforce your belief in your own capability. When you prove to yourself through action that you are reliable even when you feel empty, you begin to trust yourself. And self-trust is the foundation upon which self-belief is built. You do not build confidence by telling yourself you're worthy. You build confidence by earning your own respect. The world can doubt you, people can criticize you, circumstances can fail you. But when you know, without question, that you will show up for yourself, that is freedom. That is unshakable power, because no one can take that away from you. The Stoics believed in living according to reason, not emotion. They understood that emotions are waves, unpredictable and uncontrollable, crashing against the shores of your mind. Your emotions will deceive you. They will tell you to stay comfortable, to take the easy path, to avoid the hard work, to quit when things get tough. Your emotions want you to survive, not thrive. They are primitive signals designed to keep you safe and small, to shield you from discomfort, but at the cost of your growth. They will seduce you with ease, but starve you of excellence. But your reason knows better. Your reason knows that the path to greatness is paved with discipline, that freedom is found not in doing what you feel like doing, but in doing what must be done. Your reason sees beyond the immediate emotion to the long-term consequence. It understands that every decision is a seed planted in the soil of your future. Every act of discipline waters that seed. Every act of avoidance leaves it to wither. It is reason, not emotion, that separates those who rise from those who sink. It is reason that reminds you, the work matters more than how you feel about it. And when you can act from reason, over and over, regardless of the emotional storm within you, that is when you become unstoppable. That is when you graduate from living reactively to living intentionally, from existing to becoming. Set non-negotiable standards for yourself, not goals, standards. A goal is something you hope to achieve. A standard is something you refuse to compromise on. Whether it's waking up early, training your body, or learning something new, Build your day around unbreakable standards, not fragile motivation. Chapter 4. The Resistance of Comfort. Comfort is seductive. It lures you into thinking you've earned rest when you've only just begun. It whispers softly in your ear, stroking your ego, convincing you that you deserve to take it easy, that you've worked hard enough already, that you can let go of the struggle for just a moment. But that moment stretches into hours, then days, and before you know it, your edge is gone. The Stoics warned against luxury and ease not because they despised pleasure or beauty, but because they understood a deeper, sobering truth: that too much comfort dulls the edge of the mind, erodes resilience, and weakens your ability to withstand hardship when it inevitably arrives. Comfort is not a reward, it is an anesthetic. The more comfort you allow, the softer you become, not just in body, but in mind and spirit. And a soft mind cannot endure the storms of life. It folds at the first sign of pressure. It seeks escape rather than endurance. Comfort creates the illusion of safety while silently stripping away your strength, one indulgence at a time. It convinces you that struggle is optional, that effort can be postponed, that ease is the natural state of things. But life is not easy, and the longer you live in comfort, the less prepared you are to face the discomfort that reality will eventually impose upon you. It will not warn you. It will not give you time to prepare. And when it arrives, comfort will have left you defenseless. The battle of you versus you is often fought in silence, not in grand visible battles, but in the quiet, almost invisible moments when no one is watching. It's not fought on the battlefield, but in your bedroom, in your kitchen, in your workplace, in the hidden corners of your daily life. It is fought in the decision to stay in bed a little longer when you promised yourself you would rise early. It is fought in the decision to skip the workout, to avoid discomfort, to say, "I've done enough today," when you know deep down you haven't. It is fought in the temptation to scroll endlessly on your phone instead of reading, to postpone the hard conversation instead of facing it, to let one bad day turn into a bad week. It is fought in the choice to take the easy route, to indulge rather than endure, to coast rather than climb. It's in the decision to tell yourself tomorrow, when today was the only chance you ever had, the only guaranteed currency you possessed. But the truth is, comfort is resistance in disguise. It is not neutral. It is an active opponent wearing the mask of kindness. It is the enemy smiling at you, presenting itself as a reward, while making you weaker without you noticing. Every time you give in to it, you lose a little piece of yourself, a piece of your willpower, your self-respect, your potential. You trade long-term strength for short-term relief, sacrificing the future for a moment's peace. Comfort seduces you into believing you are safe, but it is a cage disguised as a sanctuary. It is a slow erosion, not a sudden collapse, and that is what makes it so dangerous. Like water wearing down a rock, it chips away at you imperceptibly until you no longer recognize the person staring back at you in the mirror. The Stoics understood that the true battle is not against the discomfort of the world, but against the desire to avoid it. They knew that luxury and ease were not inherently bad, but that attachment to them was fatal. When you lean on ease too often, it becomes dependency. And dependency, the Stoics taught, is the foundation of weakness. When you can recognize that comfort is the real resistance, that every time you choose ease over effort, you are giving power to the weaker version of yourself, you begin to shift the balance of power within. You start to see that the small decisions you make today will either forge your future or fracture it. You can begin to free yourself from its grip by confronting your own preferences for ease, by questioning the story comfort tells you, that you've done enough, that it's okay to coast, that it can wait until tomorrow. It cannot. You can begin to lean into discomfort, to embrace the struggle, knowing that every time you choose challenge over ease, you are building something far more valuable than comfort. You are building yourself. You are choosing to become the kind of person who does not bend to the seduction of ease, but rises above it. Every hard choice is a brick in the foundation of your strength, and when the storms of life inevitably come, you will not be washed away. You will stand tall because you chose discomfort when it mattered most. Make discomfort a daily habit. Take cold showers, go for a walk, a run, or even a bike ride. Lift heavier weights, do push-ups and sit-ups. Say no to things that make you comfortable, but do not make you better. Your mind grows when your body resists ease. Chapter 5. Identity is everything. The Stoics taught that your actions shape your character. They understood that identity is not something bestowed upon you at birth, nor is it something the world can give or take from you. It is something you create, slowly and deliberately, through repetition and choice. Every action you take, every habit you cultivate, every decision you make, is part of the sculpture you are carving out of yourself. You become what you repeatedly do, what you choose day after day, in the quiet moments when no one is watching. This is why the battle of you versus you is not about achieving something external. It is about becoming someone internal. It is not about the titles, trophies, or recognition you gather, but about the kind of person you shape yourself into through your daily habits and choices. Your identity is not written in stone at birth. It is fluid, alive, and molded by your willingness to rise or fall to the level of your habits. If you see yourself as weak, you will act weak. If you see yourself as disciplined, you will act disciplined. If you see yourself as a victim, you will behave like one. If you see yourself as unstoppable, your actions will follow suit. The lens through which you view yourself becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Identity is not something static or fixed. It is fluid, dynamic, and entirely within your control. It is not something you are born with. It is something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. Every decision you make is another brick laid in the construction of who you are becoming. The stronger the bricks, the stronger the structure. This is why the Stoics emphasized deliberate living. They understood that identity is not an abstract concept. It is practical, lived, and enforced in the trenches of daily life. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, he wasn't writing for the world. He wasn't performing or seeking applause. He was writing to remind himself who he wanted to be, who he needed to be, in order to carry the weight of his responsibilities and principles. He was building himself, brick by brick, reflection by reflection, page by page. That is the essence of identity, a constant, deliberate effort to align your actions with your highest self, even when no one is looking, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable. This is why the internal battle is never over. It is a relentless, ongoing process that does not end with one victory or one good day. Identity is not forged in a single day or with a single victory. It is the result of countless choices, layered one on top of the other like sediment forming the ground beneath your feet. It is shaped over time, with every small decision you make when no one is watching, every daily choice to act in accordance with the person you want to become, even when it's inconvenient, even when it feels insignificant. It is sculpted in the early mornings when you don't want to rise but do anyway, in the late nights when you are tempted to quit but keep going, in the quiet, invisible hours when the world is asleep, but your mind is still at war with itself. Identity is not something that reveals itself overnight. It is shaped in fragments, in subtle, often unnoticed moments. It is formed in the spaces between comfort and effort, in how you respond to boredom, temptation, stress, and adversity. It is shaped when you choose to push through resistance rather than retreat. Every day is a vote for the kind of person you will become. Each action, no matter how trivial it appears, is casting a ballot in favor of strength or weakness, integrity or complacency, excellence or mediocrity. These votes accumulate over time, silently shaping the architecture of your character. Like drops of rain carving canyons over centuries, these small, persistent choices eventually determine whether you become the person you aspire to be or the person you allowed yourself to settle for. The decisions you make when no one is looking matter more than the ones you make in the spotlight. Because it is in those hidden moments that you truly reveal who you are. And in this, the Stoics remind us, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. Your identity is nothing more and nothing less than the collection of those habits you allow to define you. It is not shaped by what you say you want, but by what you consistently choose to do. The battle of you versus you is fought in the trenches of habit, in the repetitive, often boring but powerful discipline of daily action. If you want to know who you are becoming, look at what you repeatedly do when no one is watching. That is your identity in motion. Every night, write down 3 actions you took that aligned with the person you want to be. Not achievements, actions. This will train your mind to focus on being rather than merely doing. Chapter 6. The Mirror of Adversity. The Stoics believed that adversity does not shape your character, it reveals it. They understood that life will inevitably confront you with challenges, discomforts, and obstacles, but these are not interruptions to the path. They are the path itself. It is within these storms and struggles that the truth of who you are is uncovered. How you respond to them is not just a reflection of your strength. It is a reflection of your values, your mindset, and the foundation upon which you've built your life. In the arena of you versus you, adversity is the ultimate mirror. It shows you whether you've been training or simply talking. It unmasks the strength you've built, or exposes the weakness you've ignored. It strips away your illusions and forces you to confront the reality of who you are beneath the layers of talk, appearance, and intention. It does not ask you what you say you value, it asks you to prove it. When discomfort knocks on your door, you are faced with the rawest question of all. Will you rise or will you retreat? Will you stand firm in the storm or will you fold when no one is looking but yourself? This is the battle that defines you, not when everything is smooth, but when everything is falling apart. Most people wish adversity away. They long for the storm to pass, hoping to return quickly to ease and peace. They view obstacles as interruptions, inconveniences that derail their plans. They curse the heavens, asking why life must be so difficult. But the Stoics taught the opposite. They believed adversity is not the thing in your way, it is the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Adversity is not an obstacle. It is the proving ground of your identity. It is the furnace that forges your inner steel. It is the test you secretly know you need, but wish you didn't have to face, because deep down you know that without adversity there can be no refinement, no growth, no self-respect. Each hardship that arrives in your life is not a punishment, but a mirror, a brutally honest reflection of your preparation and your principles. When you encounter difficulty, you are given a chance to see how far you've truly come. Not how well you can talk about strength, not how well you can post about resilience, but how well you can live it when no one is clapping, when no applause is coming, when the weight feels too heavy. The hardship strips away all decoration, leaving only your character bare. It reminds you that talk is cheap, and performance under pressure is everything. Every hardship is an invitation to test yourself against yourself, to see whether your actions match your values when the pressure is high and the odds are against you. Adversity is the classroom where you learn what discipline really means. It reveals if you are willing to choose what is right over what is easy. It exposes whether your commitment is real or merely a performance. And the beauty of it is that every hardship, no matter how painful, gives you the chance to write a different answer to the question, who are you when it's hard? Who are you when there is no comfort, no shortcut, no guarantee? Who are you when you have nothing left to prove, but everything left to build? It is in these moments, when you are bent but not broken, tired but still moving, that you discover who you really are. In that mirror of adversity, you are not only shown your reflection, you are also handed the tools to change it. Every difficulty you face, every obstacle you overcome, adds another brick to the foundation of your resilience. It is not in the absence of struggle that greatness is born, but in the presence of relentless challenge. And when you learn to welcome adversity, not as something to fear, but as something to embrace, you no longer hope for an easy life. You build the strength to endure a hard one. You cease to run from storms. Instead, you become the storm. Each time you face adversity, write down what the challenge is revealing about you. Are you calm or reactive? Are you disciplined or avoidant? This reflection will show you who you really are and where you need to grow. Chapter 7. Self-respect through self-discipline. Self-respect is not something you can buy, demand, or fake. It is earned, and it is earned privately, in the quiet corners of your life where no one else is watching. The Stoics knew that the root of true confidence is not found in applause, recognition, or external validation. It is found in internal discipline, in the ability to govern yourself when the world isn't paying attention. They understood that your opinion of yourself is the most important measure of your worth, and that self-respect is the fruit of countless small victories over yourself. Every time you tell yourself you will do something and then follow through, you are casting a vote for the stronger, more reliable version of yourself. You are building self-respect brick by brick, decision by decision, even when it feels small or unnoticed. It may seem trivial in the moment, whether it's showing up to the gym, sticking to your reading habit, or completing a mundane task. But every action you follow through on plants a seed, and those seeds grow roots deep into the soil of your identity. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you erode that structure, tearing down what you've worked to build. You teach yourself that your word is negotiable, that your intentions don't matter, and over time, this inner fracture grows larger. Your word to yourself is the most sacred agreement you will ever make. It is the foundation of your self-respect, your self-belief, and your sense of inner strength. If you cannot trust yourself, you will always struggle to believe in yourself. And without that belief, no amount of praise, applause, or approval from others will ever fill the void. External admiration is hollow when your internal opinion of yourself is weak. Self-discipline is the bedrock of that trust. It is not about rigid control, punishment, or perfection. It is about consistent commitment to what matters most. It is the quiet, steady resolve to do the right thing, even when it's inconvenient, even when you don't feel like it, even when no one will ever know. The Stoics taught that to live well is to live with integrity, where your actions align with your principles, not because you are being watched, but because you know you are watching yourself. That internal audience is the one you can never escape, and the one whose opinion matters the most. When you lack discipline, you fall prey to every impulse, every distraction, every temptation. You hand your life over to your emotions, to external forces, to circumstances that you pretend you can't control. You become a passenger rather than the driver of your own life, pulled in every direction by the winds of the world. But when you build discipline, you reclaim that control. You take ownership. You demonstrate to yourself over and over that you are capable of showing up, following through, and honoring your word. You silence the voice in your head that says you can't, because your actions prove otherwise. And nothing is more powerful than knowing you will not betray yourself, that when you say you will do something, it will get done. That is where self-respect is born, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, invisible discipline of keeping your promises to yourself when no one is watching, when no applause is coming, when the only person who will ever know is you. That is the soil in which real, unshakable confidence grows. Make one small daily promise to yourself and never break it. It could be something as simple as a morning walk, 5 minutes of meditation, or reading a page of a book. Start small, but keep your word. The habit of self-respect grows from these small, unbreakable commitments. Chapter 8. The Prison of Comparison. The Stoics taught that comparison is a trap that leads only to misery. They understood that when you measure your worth by the achievements, possessions, or appearance of others, you hand over your peace to forces you cannot control. You allow your internal state to be dictated by someone else's circumstances, by someone else's timeline, by a reality that is not your own. And the moment you do that, you forfeit your own serenity and power. In the battle of you versus you, comparison is one of the most deceptive weapons used against you. A distraction disguised as ambition, a parasite that feeds on your insecurity while masquerading as motivation. It draws your attention outward, making you believe your value is relative to someone else's success. It convinces you that your progress is meaningless unless it surpasses the progress of others. But the Stoics reminded us over and over that the only measure that matters is how you measure against who you were yesterday, not who your neighbor is, not who your competitor is, not who a stranger on the internet appears to be, but who you were the day before. The modern world is a breeding ground for comparison. Social media, endless headlines, curated highlight reels, influencer lifestyles, all carefully engineered to make you feel like you are behind, like you are inadequate, like you are losing a race you never agreed to run. But the Stoic way is to step off that treadmill. It is to redirect your gaze inward and focus on what you can control, your own effort, your own progress, your own discipline. What matters is not how you compare to others, but whether you are closing the gap between who you are and who you could be. Every moment you spend comparing yourself to another is a moment wasted in the only battle that truly matters, the battle of you versus you. Each evening, reflect on your progress. Write down 3 ways you improved compared to the day before. Ignore the world's scoreboard. Focus on your own. Chapter 9. Ownership of your fate. The Stoics believed in a radical concept, that you are responsible for everything within your control and nothing else. This simple yet powerful idea is the cornerstone of personal power. In the battle of you versus you, ownership is the ultimate weapon. It is the dividing line between those who live freely and those who live enslaved by circumstance. You cannot control what happens to you. You cannot control other people's opinions, the economy, the weather, or fate itself. You cannot dictate how others treat you or whether the world will be fair. But you can control your response. You can control your effort, your attitude, your discipline, your decisions, and your inner narrative. And when you claim ownership over these, you take back your freedom. You stop handing your power over to forces beyond your control and begin to reclaim authority over your life. Most people live their entire lives trapped in the illusion that they are powerless, that life happens to them rather than for them or through them. They wake up each day feeling as though they are victims of fate, powerless spectators watching the events of their lives unfold without any say or control. They walk around carrying invisible chains, believing the world owes them something it never promised. They blame circumstances, people, bad luck, the past, or their upbringing for where they are. They convince themselves that the cards they were dealt are responsible for everything they lack. They tell themselves that if only the world were fair, if only people were kinder, if only luck were on their side, then they would finally be happy, fulfilled, and free. But the Stoics knew that victimhood is easy. Blame is effortless. It requires no action, no responsibility, and no courage. It is a trap disguised as comfort. It allows you to feel safe in your weakness because it gives you an excuse to avoid change. But every time you choose to blame, you give away your power. You reinforce the idea that you are helpless, that you are at the mercy of the external world, and that your destiny belongs to something or someone outside of yourself. What most people don't realize is that this illusion of powerlessness is self-inflicted. It is a prison built not by society, not by fate, not by their past, but by their own thoughts. The walls are erected by their own refusal to accept responsibility. The chains are forged from their own unwillingness to look in the mirror and say, "This is on me." And as long as they refuse to see that, they will remain trapped, waiting for the world to fix itself so they can finally feel free. They will spend their lives hoping the storm will pass, never realizing they were meant to become the storm. The Stoics taught that true freedom comes from accepting responsibility for your own mind, your own actions, and your own destiny. They understood that ownership is not just about what you do, it is about how you think. It is about stepping out of the role of passive observer and into the role of active participant in your own life. It is about rejecting the narrative of victimhood and choosing instead to stand tall in the face of challenge. It is about standing up and saying, "I will not blame, I will not complain, I will not make excuses. I will own my life." Ownership is liberation. It is the moment you stop negotiating with your limitations and start negotiating with your potential. It is the recognition that you cannot control the world, but you can always control yourself. And in that control lies your freedom. That is how you win the battle of you versus you. Not by waiting for perfect circumstances, not by demanding the world bend to your will, but by bending yourself to meet the challenge. Not by hoping for a life free of obstacles, but by becoming a person who is unbothered by them. Because when you stop waiting for the world to change and start changing yourself, you become unstoppable. You realize that the obstacles you once cursed were actually the training grounds of your character, and you finally understand that the key to your freedom was in your hands all along. The world doesn't have to change for you to be free. You only have to change yourself. Whenever you find yourself complaining or blaming, stop and ask, what part of this is within my control? Then focus all your energy there. Chapter 10. You versus you, the endless battle. The final truth is this: there is no finish line. There is no moment when you will arrive and the internal battle will be over. There is no destination where doubt vanishes, where struggle disappears, where you become permanently invincible. The battle of you versus you is endless, not because you are broken, but because you are human. You are wired to wrestle with yourself. You are designed to face fear, weakness, and temptation again and again. It is not a flaw in your design. It is the very process by which you evolve. It is the human condition, the never-ending tension between who you are and who you could be. The Stoics knew that life is not a straight path to perfection. It is a constant process of refining, of falling and rising, of slipping and correcting. It is the experience of being knocked down, getting up, and stepping forward again. It is the rhythm of expansion and contraction, effort and rest, gain and loss. You will never be free of the inner critic, the doubts, the fear, but you can learn to rise above them again and again. You can learn to meet them not as enemies, but as companions on your journey. The goal is not to silence them forever, but to become so practiced in facing them that they lose their power over you. It is to recognize that they are not barriers, but part of the terrain, the very landscape of the battlefield where you shape yourself. Victory in this battle is not a single event. It is not marked by applause, trophies, or recognition. It is not a prize you win one day and hold forever. It is a way of living. It is the willingness to face yourself every day, to confront the weaker voice inside and choose the stronger path. It is the decision to rise when you'd rather retreat, to take one more step when you feel like stopping, to speak truth when silence would be easier. It is the courage to look at yourself honestly, to hold yourself accountable, and to keep going even when it feels like you are fighting the same fight over and over. Because that fight is not a punishment. It is your training ground, the forge that strengthens you each time you step into the ring. It is where the real work of life is done. The battle of you versus you is the most important war you will ever wage. It is not one you fight once and then retire victorious. It is not a single duel where you emerge triumphant and are never challenged again. It is a lifelong campaign, fought every morning when you wake up, every evening when you reflect, and every moment in between when you must decide whether to rise or to retreat. Because when you win it, when you learn to master your own mind, you unlock a strength that no outside force can shake. You become unbreakable, not because the world has become kinder, but because you have become stronger. The storms of life will rage around you like hurricanes, tearing through the weak structures of those who have not built themselves from within. But you will not crumble. You will bend, but not break. The critics will shout from the sidelines, trying to shake you, trying to define you with their words. But you will not flinch. You will meet their noise with silence, because you will already have won the argument within. The obstacles will rise, as they always do, towering and terrifying. But you will move through them, not because they disappeared, but because you outgrew them. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You transformed yourself, slowly, deliberately, through every hard choice, every small victory, every moment of discipline when you wanted to quit. You will look back and realize that the storms, the critics, the obstacles, they were never your real enemy. They were simply reflections of the fight within, because you chose, again and again, to win the most important battle there is, the one within yourself. The battle of doubt versus action, fear versus courage, weakness versus will. And when you understand this, when you stop searching for an ending, for a day when the fight is done and the work is over, you will realize the deepest truth of all. You were never meant to arrive. There is no final destination, no flawless peak where you will stand and declare yourself complete. No point where doubt will vanish, struggle will dissolve, or the need for effort will disappear. The truth is more powerful and more liberating than that. You were meant to evolve, to sharpen, to refine, to stretch beyond what you thought was possible, to stumble and get back up, to fall and rise and fall again, and through that process become someone you once thought impossible. The battle was never meant to be won once. It was meant to shape you endlessly. Every time you rise, every time you face yourself and choose strength over weakness, you are being carved, molded, sculpted into the next version of yourself. The person you are today is only the foundation. Tomorrow, you will build on that. And the next day, again. You are a work in progress not because you are broken, but because you are capable of becoming so much more. And when you finally embrace that truth, when you stop resisting the grind and instead lean into it, you will understand that the endless fight is not your burden, it is your freedom. It is your invitation to live fully, to engage completely, to wake up each day knowing that you get to do this, that you are not finished, and that you never will be. because the only real end is stagnation, complacency, surrender. And that is not your path. Your path is to rise again and again, not because you must, but because you can. Each morning remind yourself, today I will win the battle within. Write it down, say it out loud, and then live it, decision by decision, moment by moment, day after day. Of falling and rising, of slipping and correcting. It is the experience of being knocked down, getting up, and stepping forward again. It is the rhythm of expansion and contraction, effort and rest, gain and loss. You will never be free of the inner critic, the doubts, the fear, but you can learn to rise above them again and again. You can learn to meet them not as enemies, but as companions on your journey. The goal is not to silence them forever, but to become so practiced in facing them that they lose their power over you. It is to recognize that they are not barriers, but part of the terrain, the very landscape of the battlefield where you shape yourself. Victory in this battle is not a single event. It is not marked by applause, trophies, or recognition. It is not a prize you win one day and hold forever. It is a way of living. It is the willingness to face yourself every day, to confront the weaker voice inside and choose the stronger path. It is the decision to rise when you'd rather retreat, to take one more step when you feel like stopping, to speak truth when silence would be easier. It is the courage to look at yourself honestly, to hold yourself accountable, and to keep going even when it feels like you are fighting the same fight over and over. Because that fight is not a punishment. It is your training ground, the forge that strengthens you each time you step into the ring. It is where the real work of life is done. The battle of you versus you is the most important war you will ever wage. It is not one you fight once and then retire victorious. It is not a single duel where you emerge triumphant and are never challenged again. It is a lifelong campaign, fought every morning when you wake up, every evening when you reflect, and every moment in between when you must decide whether to rise or to retreat. Because when you win it, when you learn to master your own mind, You unlock a strength that no outside force can shake. You become unbreakable, not because the world has become kinder, but because you have become stronger. The storms of life will rage around you like hurricanes, tearing through the weak structures of those who have not built themselves from within. But you will not crumble. You will bend, but not break. The critics will shout from the sidelines, trying to shake you, trying to define you with their words. But you will not flinch. You will meet their noise with silence, because you will already have won the argument within. The obstacles will rise, as they always do, towering and terrifying. But you will move through them, not because they disappeared, but because you outgrew them. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You transformed yourself slowly, deliberately, through every hard choice, every small victory, every moment of discipline when you wanted to quit. You will look back and realize that the storms, the critics, the obstacles, they were never your real enemy. They were simply reflections of the fight within, because you chose, again and again, to win the most important battle there is, the one within yourself. The battle of doubt versus action, fear versus courage, weakness versus will. And when you understand this, when you stop searching for an ending, for a day when the fight is done and the work is over, you will realize the deepest truth of all. You were never meant to arrive. There is no final destination, no flawless peak where you will stand and declare yourself complete. No point where doubt will vanish, struggle will dissolve, or the need for effort will disappear. The truth is more powerful and more liberating than that. You were meant to evolve, to sharpen, to refine, to stretch beyond what you thought was possible, to stumble and get back up, to fall and rise and fall again, and through that process become someone you once thought impossible. The battle was never meant to be won once. It was meant to shape you endlessly. Every time you rise, every time you face yourself and choose strength over weakness, you are being carved, molded, sculpted into the next version of yourself. The person you are today is only the foundation. Tomorrow you will build on that, and the next day again. You are a work in progress, not because you are broken, but because you are capable of becoming so much more. And when you finally embrace that truth, when you stop resisting the grind and instead lean into it, you will understand that the endless fight is not your burden. It is your freedom. It is your invitation to live fully, to engage completely, to wake up each day knowing that you get to do this, that you are not finished, and that you never will be. Because the only real end is stagnation, complacency, surrender. And that is not your path. Your path is to rise again and again, not because you must, but because you can. Each morning remind yourself, today I will win the battle within. Write it down, say it out loud, and then live it, decision by decision, moment by moment, day after day.